This is my presentation of Global Analysis of Game Developer Ethics by Rashawn Davis. This presentation will be structured by the introduction, background and significance, counter-argument, global analysis, and conclusion. Introduction. Game developers, like most professionals, face the responsibility of deciding what's ethical and unethical in what they produce. They are tasked to design and develop video games by coding the base engine, designing characters and levels, creating animation, and testing the code. With game developers being so heavily involved, one might question their responsibility to produce a game that doesn't falter too far from the line of ethics. This presentation intends to explore the ethics of a game developer and the challenges they face navigating businesses prioritizing profits over ethics, such as microtransactions and inclusion of mature content. Background and significance. In this section, we will talk about Aristotelian virtue method and the unethical game designs that are practiced by game developers. The Aristotelian virtue method. This is a theory and a virtue that focuses on the compassion of people and the character they exhibit rather than their singular actions. This virtual theory is about producing the correct response to a feeling associated with the golden mean, which is a response that is neither excessive or deficient. That means remaining patient, modest, courageous, righteous, compassionate, full of integrity and fairness. For an example, an unethical developer chooses to implement psychological tricks that would make a game addicting, leading to users spending more money, while the ethical developer will create a game that is free from microtransactions, other trickery, and produce a game that doesn't sensationalize mature content. Therefore, if a game developer is to be influenced by the choices that they choose to make while making a game, if a developer chooses to implement unpractical practices in their game, it could cause a tremendous amount of harm. According to the virtue ethics theory, if a character is tainted through acts of destruction toward others, then one cannot be considered ethical. Unethical game designs. Businesses utilize multiple methods to increase profits, pushing aside any means of virtue, and if a game developer participates, then by association engages in unethical practices. These include lure to pay and pay to win. The lure to pay method is a psychological trap designed to trick the customer that the game is largely free, and then when a moment of meaningfulness arrives, it forces the customer to pay money in advance. This method is not considered a good virtue because it creates an addiction through manipulating the customer to think the game is free and meant for pure fun. However, it's using a form of manipulation to lure the customer in, which is not considered good. A game that utilizes this is called Choices. It's a choice-based game that allows the users to make choices that reflect on the nature of the character. However, after a certain point, you must pay to get more story. The next method is pay to win, which could be considered cheating in an institutionalized form. Essentially, incentivizing the customer who pays the most money to win gets the most out of its setting. Games that utilize this method include online competitive induced games such as Madden or NBA 2K. In Madden, it's known as Ultimate Team mode, where you compete online with a fantasy team, and whoever has the best cards pretty much wins. Games that involve nudity and violence contribute to desensitizing those acts in the real world, thus seen as teaching unethical behavior. There are few games that portray this, such as Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, Saints Row, and based off the virtuous theory, violence and nudity in games causes the character of the user to be in jeopardy because it fantasizes part of the society that is deemed unacceptable and strays away from the golden mean. Moving to the counter-argument. For counter-argument, it could be argued by allowing the users to pay for advancement or to be best in competitive play helps prevent user abandonment because of simple and repetitive gameplay. Also, allowing the user to pay to win gives the developers the opportunity to police cheating that would normally happen in traditional games. Another argument could be that there is no science providing a link between video games and real-world violence. As one article states, social meanings of a crime are in transition. There's not a single variable as a public want a single concrete explanation as to why people commit atrocities when these answers can be very complex. Meaning the finger cannot be pointed to video games as to the reason unethical behavior can be exhibited by the user. The Strauss-Telian virtue theory is to hold true, then the singular act of the game developer produces should not be judged as unethical. The next section is the global analysis. Each country goes about dealing with their responsibilities toward game developers and their teaching of ethical or unethical behavior differently. Countries practice principles of freedom, democracy, while others exhibit a more authoritarian approach. In this section, the countries we will go over are the United States, China, and Germany. In the United States, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act was made to protect children from trickery and manipulation from developers that seek nothing but profit. An example of the United States stepping in is against Epic Games, who is accused of stealing children's data and exposing them to adult predators and participating in deceptive billing practices. Epic Games used Fortnite to use psychological techniques, lure to win method, to lure young and impressionable children with the excitement of a free-to-play game, just to use limited time offers to trick children into using their parents' credit cards. China and others. China describes the gaming industry as digital opium, and if any foreign developer company wants to do business there, they are legally obliged to have a local partner. With that local partner, they censor as much as they possibly can. Regulators in China are notoriously disdainful to gambling, violence, and nudity in video games because they have a set of virtues that they choose to abide by. For example, a designer at Riot tried to introduce a game called League of Legends. That game was heavily censored. They took out skeletons, anything that had to do with exposed bones or ribs. It couldn't feature any realistic blood, and they had to remove all characters that resembled monsters. Also, a game called PUBG wasn't officially released in China because it was deemed too violent. The government went as far as establishing an online gaming ethics committee that would block any games that violated family ethics. Thus, any games that failed 3 times in the past to review process, it would include submitting a video, screenshots, and often tons of thousands of words explaining what the game is, could be permanently blocked. There are liberal countries that censor what citizens see in games as well. For example, Australia has a paternalistic attitude towards games, restricting them more than movies or TV shows. German regulators also banned an exorbitant number of mainstream games because of gratuitous violence. In Germany, the game GoldenEye 007 was put on a list of media harmful to young persons and banned for 23 years because of the amount of violence that it portrayed. In conclusion, a game developer has the responsibility to exhibit virtue, thinking about the impact of what they choose to create. Virtue, however, could mean something different to everyone, making it subjective to the user. There are factors that are out of the control of the developer, like business practices, lure to win and pay to win. However, it can be argued that these practices prevent immoral actions like cheating. Governments have made efforts to increase censorship, giving credence to virtues of integrity, compassion, and fairness. It would seem to be an ethical game developer. One would have to inspect their character and then make decisions that aligns with oneself. Therefore, teaching ethical behavior is a matter of what is considered ethical to the creators or the governors of the state. And this concludes my global analysis of game developer ethics. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Have a blessed day.